Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, there's a story in one of our newspapers today. This is from the Daily Mirror, and it's saying that pints of wine will be on sale from this coming autumn. Now, you may remember a few months ago, I told you about this, that pint-size glasses and bottles of wine were to be made available in the UK. And of course, as a nation, we don't really taste things. We just drink in volumes because we don't really have an appreciation. We don't taste the wine and say, oh, delicious, dry, sweet, would be nice with fish. No, we just drink to get drunk. So it's no surprise then that we would want wine by the pint rather than appreciating the delicacy and beauty of the drink. So we're going to go through this story and we'll be talking about it as we go. So it says here, pint-sized bottles of wine will hit UK shelves later this year, a government minister has said. Kevin Hollinrake said 7 changes to pre-pack aged wine sizes will take effect from September 19th. He said they will offer greater choice to Britain's thriving wine market. So first of all, when something hits the shelves, that means that the shelves are going to be packed. We often use the word hit if we think it's going to be popular. You can imagine the wine being thrown onto the shelves, stacked up, ready for people to buy when they hit the shelves. Now, he goes on to say they will offer greater choice to Britain's thriving wine market. Well, thriving just means popular or something which is considered to be good, something which is growing, something which is popular, something which is thriving and being enjoyed. Now, that's in stark contrast to yesterday's news story, which I don't think I shared with you, but there was another story yesterday saying that actually British people aren't drinking so much wine. So it just proves again that you can take figures and twist them any way you want. And of course, that's what a lot of our media do. Or perhaps I should say that's what the media does, saying it in a different way. So that's what the central government have said, that they will offer greater choice to Britain's thriving wine market. Now, I've told you before that Britain is divided up into 4 nations, and each of these 4 nations have their own laws about different things, but alcohol and taxation in general is still controlled mostly by the central government. So they're the ones who are bringing this in. Now, the Scottish government responded. This is a guy called Patrick Grady. He said the central government should admit there is little to no demand for interest in this supposedly glorious Brexit benefits. The Member of Parliament from Glasgow said the reality is a Brexit nightmare of border checks, reduced consumer choice, and of business closures. So the Scottish government clearly aren't happy that these pint-sized bottles of wine and pints of wine in the pubs will be coming soon. I have to say, I don't think they're going to be very popular. I mean, men here tend to have a very traditional view of masculinity, how men should act, especially older men. And I honestly don't think a lot of men will be going into the pub to ask for a pint of wine because they would see that as something feminine. Now, I'm not sure what it's like in your country, but in some of our towns and villages, men wouldn't even go into a pub and ask for a soft drink because they would fear that that would look silly or stupid. So if they're if they're not comfortable even buying soft drinks when they're with their mates, they're not going to be okay buying pints of wine, are they? But I think the industry are saying that this will be very popular with women because they won't keep having to go to the bar buying more wine. They can simply have a pint of wine and sit there and enjoy it. Although, again, here, many women would just be drinking beer in the same way as men do. So the whole thing seems a little bit strange. And this story ends by saying pint-sized bottles of champagne were sold in the UK before Britain joined the European Union, or the Common Market as it was known then, in 1973. But production of pint-sized champagne bottles stopped because they didn't comply with European Union weights and measures rules. I'm not sure what the other changes are. I mean, he's saying that there's 7 changes. The Scottish government, we're moving on now to a more expanded report, which is on Sky News. It's the same story, but with a bit more detail. The Scottish government, the same guy, Mr. Grady, has said that this was nowhere near as definitive as the government press release from December, which was headlined "Pints of Wine Stocked on Britain's Shelves for the First Time Ever." So I don't know exactly where they're going with this. They seem to be promoting this as a Brexit freedom because, of course, now that they're leaving the EU, or I should say now that we have left the EU, we can again serve pints of things which we weren't allowed to do. So champagne was available as pints, and that was stopped when we joined the European Common Market in 73. So by now offering pints of wine again, we're kind of like saying, wow, we can do this because we're no longer in the EU. But that's really odd. I mean, I would prefer if they spent their time trying to get me my bananas. As I mentioned a few times, my local supermarket isn't always able now to get me the things I want. Tomatoes often vanish for months at a time, and the latest problem I've had is trying to get bananas, and this is all because of Brexit. They've told me that it's not Brexit directly, it's the logistics of moving things around. And more difficult checks came into force on the 1st of May, which they're saying will delay even more things coming into the EU. So I would have thought they would have had other things to worry about than giving us pints of wine. It's a little bit odd. Anyway, this man, this MP, Mr. Grady from the Scottish government, he challenged the government to admit that its Brexit dream of people drinking wine in pints was simply a fantasy, highlighting the harsher reality, which is the fact that there's now a Brexit nightmare of border checks and reduced consumer choices. In response, the central government said, and this is Kemi Badenoch, I don't know whether that person is male or female, but whoever they are, they said, I can't imagine why anyone would be complaining about the sale of pints of wine. She added, if Mr. Grady doesn't like it, he doesn't have to buy it. So there's a very clear disregard there for the fact that many people here are dying of alcoholism. Now, of course, alcoholism is a disease which, although has the word alcohol in it, is much more complex than that. But this doesn't help, that's for sure. You think they would be looking at ways of reducing our alcohol intake, especially since they're planning to ban cigarette smoking completely. So Mr. Grady, his response, as I was saying a moment ago, he was saying that this is nothing like what they promised. And Mr. Hollenrake went on to say and defend the industry's performance. He says, our wine industry is thriving. There's now 900 vineyards across Britain. The UK wine industry produced 12.2 million bottles of wine in 2022, and our new post-Brexit powers provide new options, including the ability to change and align existing sizes across still and sparkling pre-packed wine in different quantities, which we know there's demand for. Oh no, that sounds awful, the way they've said that, doesn't it? British wine, ugh. Doesn't it just sound awful? I can't imagine. I suppose it would be more like vinegar. There are things that I think Britain does well, but there's also things which Britain really doesn't do well. I mean, if you look at the continent, like the Mediterranean, Europe, they love life. They love time with family. Everything is done around a nice, good social life. But here, things are made and designed about how to get us drunk quickly so that we can relax enough to enjoy life. And because of that, we don't really have this concept of being out for the night, tasting a nice wine, going home sober. Our idea of drinking wine is in front of the TV alone and drinking it till you fall asleep and wake up on the sofa at 3 a.m., freezing cold, having missed the movie, with popcorn on the floor and the cat jumping on you. Oh dear, ooh, I'm really glad that I don't drink, you know. So it's hard for me to imagine what British wine would be like when I know the culture that we actually drink it in. It's really sad. And then, of course, this has also sparked a debate about whether we should give children wine at the dinner table. And as usual, what that's done is opened up another big discussion. And of course, the people in favor of that are saying, wow, look at France. Their children don't become alcoholics. Yes, but their children are probably much more functional than British kids are. Well, for me personally, I didn't really have a love of alcohol anyway. When I was younger, I was always around people who didn't drink. I didn't really involve myself with drinkers. There were many of us who didn't drink, and that was a much better social circle. I was aware, of course, that British people had some kind of problem with this. I think it's because they use it to avoid feeling or to take responsibility for their lives, especially these days. So I was never really interested in alcohol and its culture. Uh, and then I think it became very clear as I got older that there were people around me who were dying of alcoholism, and I watched them suffering and dying really nasty, horrible deaths because of alcohol. And because I was traveling as well, living in countries where alcohol is very social and not a big deal, alcohol has never really been part of my experience. And it's quite sad because alcohol is the lubricant here for being social. So if you don't drink, you aren't really welcome in many social circles. It's so much ingrained into our society that even just not drinking makes you seem very, very odd in the eyes of some people. But, well, that's the way it is. Well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's talk again soon. See you. Bye.